Hello, people of the internet. I am Andres Perez, aka Kaiji Noir, and welcome to episode 15 of Fully Endorsed. I am here with my co-host, Mr. Dillion McCandless, aka Super DM64.
Hello, everybody.
And
prepare for pain.
Oh boy. Oh, Jesus. And introducing our second guest. Or how do I introduce this?
Remember when we did that guest episode a while back?
Yes. So we're doing that again, and so this time around we have Mr. Matt Burkett of the Monstrosities Toku Vlog YouTube channel here with us today to talk about a very peculiar film. And what film is that, Mr. Burkett?
It's the mother effing Greasy Strangler from 2016, directed by Jim Hosking, starring Michael St. Michaels and Sky Elabar.
So,
produced by Elijah Wood. That's a fun fact.
That's probably the biggest.
I forgot about that.
That's like the biggest name attached to this movie, I think, and his face doesn't even show up in this movie.
I'm never going to be able to watch Lord of the Rings the same way again. The whole time I'm just going to be like, what the fuck, Frodo? What's going on in there?
The actress Elizabeth DeRazzo actually did a bunch of stuff too, but she's probably like the one actress that actually has multiple work, that like more commercial work under her belt than most of these other guys.
Oh, the Hootie Tootie Disco Cutie.
Can we do that? Can we just have like a Hootie Tootie Disco line where it's just like Hootie Tootie Disco Cutie? Hootie.
No.
You don't understand. Let me just say that was the point in the movie that broke Andres.
Yes, yes, it did. It's like to skip ahead, just like we were watching this movie together, and it's like I was like my whole experience throughout the movie was like, okay.
Basically, Little like, John, and then that happened. And went, what?
Yes, I was literally screaming. I was like, "What the fuck is happening?" It's like, okay, so you know the scene where Brayden just like right after that scene, Brayden just loses his mind. He like walks out into the street in his underwear and just like is like screaming and crying, having a meltdown, a mental breakdown in the middle of the road. That was me right there.
That's kind of our friendship encapsulated, I feel. You know, like every time you're on one of my streams, that's pretty much how you exit each stream with that, you know?
I mean, it makes sense with your reputation as the constant bully streamer.
Yes, exactly.
What was it? Hashtag like Matt Monstrosities is over party. Hashtag Matt's a bully.
Can't you cancel Matt and all that fun stuff?
Yeah. I mean, you bully me, you bully Bryce.
I'm just a big bully, and I keep on bringing you guys on the streams, and you guys are such, you know, you don't know how to say no. You just keep on coming on, you know, keep on getting bullied.
It's like
over and over and over.
What do you call that? It's like an abusive relationship, or like a Stockholm syndrome.
That's exactly what it is. You know, that's exactly what it is.
And like speaking of the After Dark live streams, so a reoccurring running gag of the live stream is your constant mentionings of this film, specifically the Greasy Strangler. Anytime you want to go there, you always have to bring up the Greasy Strangler for God knows whatever reason, and everyone is often it's like an in-joke that only you and you alone knows.
And I'm the only one who finds it funny too, you know?
Yeah. So like everyone, like you would make a reference to the Greasy Strangler and everyone's like, what the fuck is he talking about?
It just got to the point to where like, you know, this is a movie I can rant and rave about, but obviously I would love to hear what you guys think, hear what Dylan thinks and stuff. But like it just got to a point to where like, you know, we would have my friends on and they've seen the movie and they know how much I like the movie. And I would make some like joke or line and they would just roll their eyes and be like, oh boy. And then it just became kind of a running gag at that point. But at the same time, to be fair, because of those constant jokes, there have been multiple people in the stream who have checked out this movie for the first time. And for better or for worse, some of them actually really enjoyed it, you know? So it's it's an ode because I really like the work of Jim Hosking. You know, I mean, we also kind of referenced Beverly Loughlin on there as well. It's just fun little stupid things. But both of those movies, again, call me weird, but I do derive some, well, not some, quite a bit of enjoyment out of it. Just it makes me laugh a lot.
Well, you certainly are weird, Matt. So I am very curious. How did you come across this movie in particular? Because if it weren't for you, I would have never have heard of this movie before. So
check this out, right? When at my old job, there's a guy there who I don't remember what the conversation was, but it was basically about his movie tastes. And I was just like playfully criticizing him. I'm like, man, you don't fucking watch anything. You know, you just watch whatever Marvel movie comes into the theater. And he goes, that's not true, man. I watched the Greasy Strangler last night. And I had a kind of a Jay and Silent Bob moment there because I was like, what the fuck is the Greasy Strangler? And ended up finding it on Amazon Prime, watched it, and hated it. I was like, what is this piece of shit? Like, come on. Like, what is this, you know? But as the week like progressed, I could not stop thinking about it. I was quoting it. I was like, this shit, I think I actually kind of enjoyed this flick, you know? And it's gotten to the point now to where, like, you know, like I said, like, I really enjoyed the work of the director, Jim Hosking. He's very slanted, you know. I mean, he has a very peculiar style that I really enjoy. But like, I mean, I went to the opening day of Beverly Loughlin, or rather, an evening with Beverly Loughlin. That was his feature that he did after Greasy Strangler back in 2018. Went with two of my best friends, and dude, we were cracking up. Like, it was just a lot of fun. And I can't really explain it. I think it kind of weirdly suits my sense of humor, you know, and it's definitely not a movie for everybody. It's so not a movie for everybody. So like, people that don't enjoy it and stuff, I completely understand it. But like, I cannot express enough like how glad I am that something like this actually exists, just because of the fact that it proves to me that any movie can still get made. You know, we're so used to seeing all this mainstream stuff that just, it's so cookie cutter and so whatever. But like, Elijah Wood saw something in this and he went on to, you know, produce it. And again, we can say if it's good or bad, but it's really cool that people of talent, people of quality saw something in a project as weird and fucking strange as this.
I guess we should have expected Elijah Wood to go crazy after being in North. I mean, that's got to do things to a kid.
Hey, didn't he also do a movie with Macaulay Culkin at one point? So I'm sure that did not go well for him.
Oh, was he the other kid in The Good Son?
I believe so. I think he was in The Good Son. Yeah, he was the good son.
I haven't seen that movie in years. I forgot that it was Elijah Wood. Interesting.
Yeah, and so with that said, what were your initial thoughts on the film, Dylan?
I mean, I don't even know where to begin. You know, this show usually has kind of a structure, and I don't think it's going to go down that way this time. I got to be honest, I was expecting it to be worse than it actually was, because Andres had kind of built it up to me in a way where, like, I was just bracing myself, because I've seen some out there, like, art house shit. So I was bracing myself for, like, all right, I'm about to see some heinous shit. And it wasn't as, like, dark as I expected, but it was definitely as weird. And I mean, that's really the main word that I come away with it. It's a really strange movie. I don't know if I like it. I don't know if I hate it. I don't know. but much like you, it definitely does stick in the brain. So yeah, that's where I'm at on the journey. How about you, Andres? How was your trip?
Let's see. So yeah, it's to say that to call it offbeat would be like an understatement of the year. And like,
it's really quirky, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes out of its way to make itself the most unpleasant experience imaginable. And I remember I told Matt this like a while back recently, where it's like, I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it set itself out to do something, and god damn it, it did accomplish just that. And well, like you said, Dylan,
whatever it was trying to do, it did it.
Yeah. And so it's got this very interesting charm of this film. Like, the more I think about it, the more I think this film has a very bizarre sense of charm to it, to where you see a lot of this disturbing shit, and it scars the brain like as it would, and it ends up like these mental scars stick with you, and the more time passes, the more those memories turn into charming like callbacks, where it's like, huh, I remember that particularly sick moment. It's like the more I look back on this movie, the more I can help but laugh at the stuff that disturbed me. And now I can't help but smile when I think of stuff like bullshit, the bullshit artist scene, or the Hootie Tootie Disco Cutie scene, or like just any number of like bizarre stuff. It's like, as unpleasant as it is, I can't help but like laugh at it looking back on it now. But like,
it's funny how unshocking the actual murder in the movie is. Like, that leaves absolutely no impact. It's the weird, monotonous, like, the score that sounds like it was provided by Keyboard Cat, and like the strange offbeat humor. That's what really gets to you on a psychological level. Dude's eyeballs popping out. I've seen that in a million Friday the 13th, but it's the other shit.
Yeah, it's like the moment like you see like the titular Greasy Strangler literally punch a guy's face in like a fucking Looney Tunes cartoon, you know that this movie is not taking itself seriously in the slightest. And it's just like, it's got this very weird, creepy feeling, and it's like I feel dirty, I feel filthy just watching this movie. It looks weird, it looks filthy, it sounds filthy. Like you mentioned, like the music is just like bop 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 bop. It's like, what's going on here?
And that's saying a lot, because Andres has seen Fritz the Cat, so if he feels dirty watching this,
I've seen the majority of Ralph Bakshi's filmography.
The guy who composed the score, Andrew Hung, he's a UK-based artist. And I believe he's part of a band called the Fuck Buttons, which says everything you need to know, right?
Yeah.
But he also did the score for Beverly Loughlin, and I know it's going to sound like Stockholm Syndrome, but dude, I love the scores to both movies. They're so effing catchy. The music in the disco where they're like doing that weird dance thing, and the guy like starts like humping Ronnie from behind,
right.
Like, oh, yeah. I can't, like, I love that freaking music. It cracks me up. It has such a weird style too, and it was so interesting. Like you look at interviews and stuff, like by the actors and by like the composer and stuff, and they were just as confounded as you guys and us. You know what I mean? It's like, how the hell am I going to score this? Is it going to be like a horror movie, or is it going to be something else? Nobody really quite knew what to make of it, but they eventually, all the weirdness just kind of accumulated into this final product.
Mm-hmm. And this is something that like Dylan and I were mentioning, in that we were often comparing this movie to that of like a mix between a 70s, 80s trauma film, as well, along with a John Waters film. And when it comes to John Waters, the only film I'm really familiar with is his most famous one, Pink Flamingo. And I don't know, it's like, I guess you might be more well-versed with John Waters, Dylan, so it's like, I'll let you explain this sort of like a comparison between these two movies' styles.
Yeah, basically it's just it's in the sort of off-kilter comedy and the sort of griminess of it. The characters will have weird obsessions with things. In Pink Flamingo, there's the egg lady, and in this, there's the father character who's obsessed with Grease for some reason. Stuff like that. It's in that very sort of weird off-kilter vein, right? Which at the time in the 70s was supposed to be like a fuck you to like the establishment, and then I guess in 2016 it's kind of come back around to that, hasn't it?
I guess so. Yeah. Like I remember, Matt, you were just mentioning before, you were sort of alluding to to how a lot of Hollywood movies kind of all sort of blend together and follow particular trends just because they focus more on the what do you call it, their return on their financial investment, as opposed to putting out something that's like unique and something that's very artistically that focuses more on the profit and less so of the artistic expression. And I guess like this movie here is sort of, tries to be as artistically expressive in the most out there way possible.
Well, you know what's really funny too is like, I'm just going to mention this just to kind of illustrate, to show how much of a stupid fan I am of this movie. I own the special edition Australian exclusive double disc Blu-ray set, right? Okay. And there's this great interview with Jim Hosking on there, and something I really appreciated was that he says, like, he's like, I didn't make this movie to shock anybody. I literally made a movie. They made the kind of movie I would personally get a kick out of, and he even, he's admitted that his sense of humor and his tastes are way different than everybody else's, right? Mm-hmm. But it's like I was saying before, it's and this might be putting it on a weird pedestal here, but like, just like for anybody who's like trying to be a filmmaker or stuff, I mean, I work in the field, I work for a company that is, works primarily in like the commercial production stuff. But, everybody wants to make a feature film. And I just feel like this movie, as weird as it might be, is kind of a testament to like, to just anything's possible. It's inspiring that you had people with talent see something in this just bizarre thing. And I'm happy that something like this can exist in today's world. As weird as that sounds, and people might call me a bullshit artist for saying that, but that's honestly how I feel.
Bullshit, horse shit, chicken shit.
It definitely proves
King Penguin shit.
Sorry. It definitely proves that no matter how weird you think your idea is, Elijah Wood will finance it. So just hit him up.
Just so remember, kids, follow your dreams, and one day you too will have a greasy strangler of your own.
They had a number of producers on here actually, and some of them actually do. I mean, they have good backgrounds in some stuff like Ant Timpson. He did some of the ABCs of Death movies. If you guys have ever seen those,
I've seen a few segments of the ABCs of Death online.
Yeah.
Now that you mention it, we did notice that there were a lot of production logos at the start of this movie.
Right.
Yes.
I was like,
my God, there's like half a dozen of them.
Yeah, I was like, when is this movie going to start? It's like, why were
it's
so
like when
many
you see
people...
a movie in the.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
It's like when you see a movie in the theater and you play that game of, okay, is this the movie or is this another logo? And then some words will pop up and you're like, okay, that's a logo, and it just keeps going for several minutes.
Yeah. I was like, why are there so many people who literally were invested in this movie?
There was a lot of them, for sure. It reminds me of that Family Guy gag. I think they have like, all the cinematic company intros or something, and Peter's just like, oh, is this a movie? Oh, yeah. Oh, wait, no, not yet, Yeah. And it just goes on for a solid 5 minutes.
Yeah. And every couple of years, it's like there's a whole new batch of logos that you have to learn, because every couple of years, it seems like all these new companies pop up.
That's absolutely true.
And so I guess like the other thing I wanted to mention before going into the actual film itself is that this movie is definitely like, not only is a very, like I mentioned multiple times perhaps at this point, it's like a very unpleasant movie that tries to be as, it goes out of its way to be as unpleasant looking and sounding and feeling as possible. And it's almost like this is sort of like a weird heightened reality where like anything goes almost. And so it's like it kind of takes all the rules of setting up a world and kind of throwing it out the window, and just goes for a really unpredictable, a very unpredictable experience. I remember like Dillion, you mentioned before, like you were in a constant state of what throughout the entire movie.
Yeah. I was basically David Tennant at the end of any of his seasons. Like something weird's happening, and I'm just sitting there going, "What?"
And that was,
and then the final weird. And then the final weird thing happens, and his voice drops an octave, and he goes, "What?" That was me.
That was absolutely intentional, actually, and that's something else that Hosking was saying in that interview I was just talking about. Was like he wanted to create a world that was out of step with the real world. You know, like he wanted you to be dropped into a place where it's like there's no cell phones, like it is that heightened reality, like you said. Right,
and you can't really tell, like you always know that something is off about everyone and everything on screen.
Yes, absolutely.
I should probably mention, because we were comparing this to John Waters before, it doesn't go as like gross out as some of the John Waters stuff goes. So like if you've seen Pink Flamingos, you can stomach this movie. You know, nobody eats a dog turd in this movie.
They eat a lot of grease, but no dog turds.
They do eat a lot of grease, and you know, depending on who you ask, which one is grosser than the other. You know, who knows? But yeah, I just wanted to get that out there. When I compare it to a John Waters movie, I don't want somebody to think that it's that level of like gross out stuff, because that's a little bit at play here, but it's more complicated than that. It's a lot more just sort of weird, like really just psychological, like just
mind fuckery.
Yeah, I don't know how else to put it. I don't know what to say about this movie.
So I guess
yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
No. Go ahead. I was just about to go into the actual plot details itself.
Oh, I was just going to say,
please explain Greasy Strangler to us.
You're wanting to pull a Rich Evans and try to explain this like he explained Double Down.
Please do.
How much
do we see his penis in the movie, Andre?
We see his penis. We see everyone's penis.
All the penis.
We see all the... No, he's like, how much grease does he eat, Andres? He eats all the grease!
I was just going to say that the John Waters comparisons are definitely pretty apt, and it's something that has been said a lot by even some of the actors, like when they're trying to describe this movie. The Tim and Eric show, I think, is another one that people often say. Yeah, and kind of this Adult Swim style humor. I think the latter two comparisons are.
I would also point to like Eric Andre or.
What's that?
Xavier. I would also point to like Eric Andre or like Xavier Renegade Angel. Any of that weird shit on Adult Swim.
Right.
Totally. I do think though. I think that Jim Hosking does have a different kind of style. It might be in the same ballpark, but I do think he has a different riff on it. You know, he definitely has his own style. That's for fucking sure.
Mm-hmm.
In a weird way, it's more sentimental than any of those things, because at the core of this movie is a touching story of a father and son coming together.
It's true.
That's the weirdest thing. Like, as unpredictable as this movie is, it does have some semblance of a structure, and it treats that structure competently, surprisingly enough. It's like to go into the details, to finally go into the details as to what exactly this movie is all about. So, as Dylan alluded to, it's about a father and son who sort of run a what would you call it? A disco-themed walking tour in their town. A disco tour, yeah. So it's, I don't know which town they're supposed to be in.
Los Angeles.
Okay, thank you. I was about to say it looks like Los Angeles. And so you have the father and son who dress up in bright pink short shorts and sweaters and take random people on a tour to various locations that are supposedly have some significance to them in the history of disco. Whether or not it's true, I have no idea, but I like to think that Big Ronnie, who is the father, is a complete bullshit artist.
I don't know, man. I feel like there are only three things that Big Ronnie really cares about, and that's grease, pussy, and disco. And I think that because he just strikes me as one of those dudes. You know, he saw Saturday Night Live in the theater, and it changed his life. And now here he is. And he's given this tour, and he's going to educate you, damn it.
I guess so. That makes as much sense as anything else in this movie. So he pretty much lives at home with his son named Braden, And so Brayden is kind of pretty much like a man-child. He has like a very abusive relationship, like a verbally abusive relationship with his father. His father being the abusive one. And then one day, Brayden meets a girl on one of his tours and falls in love with her. And then there begins a love triangle between Brayden, the girl, and his father Ronnie. And in the meantime, there's a serial killer on the loose who occasionally kills people every now and then. It's clear that it's Ronnie from the very get-go. At the very first scene, he's like, "Hey, what if I were to tell you I'm the Greasy Strangler?" And so you have like these two plots going on, where you have like the love triangle plot, and then you have the Greasy Strangler plot. And eventually those two sort of, for a while, in the middle of the movie, the whole Greasy Strangler stuff is almost like forgotten, as like the focus of the movie is focused solely on the love triangle part. And then by the very end, the Greasy Strangler stuff returns in full force. And then it's just like, from there on out, it's like it's anyone's game as to where the story's gonna go.
Well, like many serial killers, he goes through a period of inactivity.
Right.
And he,
don't you love how Ronnie is the only person to ever mention the Greasy Strangler? He's the only person to bring him up into the plot, and absolutely. I love that so much.
And to the point where me and Andres were speculating whether or not the Greasy Strangler is even a known quantity, like in the news, or if it's just this one guy running around like, "What are you talking about, man? I'm not the Greasy Strangler." Like, you know what he comes off like? He comes off like one of those dudes in high school who's definitely gay, but it like constantly throughout the day has to just go like, "I'm not gay. What are you talking about?" Like, yeah, that's exactly.
He's like, "What? Nobody said you were gay. What are you talking about?"
I wasn't looking at your penis. I didn't ask.
Yeah. Every so often, he's like, "You think I'm the Greasy Strangler, don't you?" Just,
like, nah.
That's just like some weird defense of his. I don't know if it's like he definitely has a lot of like paranoia, especially when it comes to losing Brayden to this girl. Like, there's a part of him that just wants, like you mentioned, Dylan. He obsesses over what was it? Over Grease and disco and women. So it's like he's definitely lusting after this girl, but at the same time, I could feel that he just doesn't want to lose Brayden because I guess he I don't know, depends on him. I don't know if it's emotionally or what on having his son around, and he doesn't want to lose him.
This has a very interesting fashion sense.
Absolutely, yes. This guy loves to just
that weird jumpsuit that he wears at several points throughout the movie that has like the dick window.
Right. It's like when we were watching him in his like his dick window disco jumpsuit. It's like, is that a giant hole cut out for his crotch to hang out, or is there like a mesh thing holding his?
Yeah, I wasn't sure because sometimes it looked like it was flopping around, but then other times it looked like it was like
pressed against him.
Tucked into like one of the pants legs or something. Like,
yeah, it's like so you've seen this movie more times than anyone should, Matt. Is that supposed to be a big open window, or is there something like holding his dick in?
If anybody has seen this man's penis enough times, it's you. So.
Yes.
I gotta say that might be single-handedly the best question anyone has ever asked me in my fucking life. Like, I love that so much. It's tucked in the whole time, by the way.
I know it's tucked into one of the leg pants.
It's a dick. Right. It's a dick window. Like,
so it's completely open.
Yeah. There's no mesh or anything like that. It's his fucking
genitals like purely exposed to the outside to what would we call it? It's purely exposed to the world for the world to see. Nothing.
Yes.
There's nothing there between his junk and everyone else.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Because for me, it's like I was curious.
That outfit has got to be illegal in at least 40 states. I mean,
it's like the thing is, it's like I wanted to know what is up with that outfit, but that involved me having to look at his junk, and I did not want to. That was the exact thing opposite of what I wanted to do.
Yeah. The movie shows you his junk enough that you're not gonna like just look at it for no reason, you know. like you've seen it enough at that point that you're like, I'm not going to go out of my way to see it more. Like, are you kidding?
The way this movie is framed, it's framed so that his junk is the center of attention. So you have no choice but to look at his prosthetic penis.
And it is just the most fake-looking thing you've ever seen. There's nothing in the natural world that looks like that. It's this triangular thing with an irritated tip.
Yeah, it's really pointy.
Yeah, really pointy and really and very red. Even
if you have a foreskin, there should be a rounded edge somewhere. This is like...
It's so funny. Like, this is one thing I mentioned to Dylan when we were watching the movie. It's like, you know, so many mainstream movies, R-rated movies that have nudity, they usually have like nudity for like all of, I don't know, 10 seconds in the film. And this movie perhaps has more consider taking the prosthetic genitals into the equation. This movie has more nudity than you could take like a year's worth of mainstream R-rated films. This movie has more nudity than all those movies in a single year put together, and none of it is pleasant to look at.
I can think of examples of fake penises in mainstream movies, but they're pretty few and far between. I mean, you got like Boogie Nights, I think, is one, and then isn't there a movie where Harvey Keitel, you see his penis? Point is, it happens, but it's not. You know, it's not very common,
right? And it's like,
and in this movie, just like it's like 40% of the movie.
It's an absurd amount of nudity, and like everything else in this movie, none of it is pleasant to look at.
And it's funny because in the last episode,
I don't want to see any of these people naked, and it's
funny because in the very last episode of this show, Andres, we had a very in-depth conversation about the nudity in Enter the Dragon, which is nothing.
Yes.
Nothing.
There's definitely some humor derived, I think, on the director's part from these not typically, like most actors, I think in movies, like most people would consider like, oh, well, in order to get in front of the camera, you got to be this gorgeous individual. Mm-hmm. And I think that every actor in Greasy Strangler is odd looking. You know, it's not that they're bad looking. It's not that they're even ugly or whatever. They're not, the pinnacle of human beauty. I mean, right. Nor is the majority of the populace. And I think that
they're incredibly average. Put it that way.
Yeah. And that element of kind of like the nudity or the almost nudity or nude figures who are like this, like that is oddly very apparent in a lot of his other stuff too. Like he definitely finds humor in that. Like there's this I forget what the short's called, but it's with some of the guys who are actually, it's the guy who plays the Indian tourist is in it. And there's a ton of that kind of humor in there. It's and again, it's debatable if it's good or not. I happen to find it funny, but I would also agree with what you said, Andres. It's these aren't exactly people you're like, shit, I wonder what they look like without a shirt on.
Right. Because there's two kinds of people. There's people that you meet and you want to know what they look like naked. And there's people, you got to get to know them first. You got to, there's like a lot of prep that goes into that.
You know what's great is like, and this is how fucking dedicated he was. The actor who played Braden, Sky Elabar, like he's actually a pretty thin dude. Like he's super fit. He gained 15 to 20 pounds specifically for this role.
He gave it all. He gave up his physique for the Greasy Strangler.
Totally.
Wow.
Totally.
Does he normally look a bit like Dwight from The Office, or was that an intentional choice for this movie? I kept thinking the whole time watching the movie, I'm like, he kind of looks like Dwight from The Office.
He, I think he typically like wears a beard and stuff like that. But like, gotcha. I think he has a beard in Beverly Loveland, the follow-up movie. But yeah, I'm not trying to like cast shade on how anybody looks, but he's an unusual looking dude. He's not atypical to what you would consider to be an actor. But he threw himself into it, man. Like 20 fucking pounds, which is a lot, you know?
I'm going to share a picture for Dylan's sake. I just looked him up, and yeah, he looks like nothing like... He almost looks like a completely different person compared to how he looks in the Greasy Strangler.
Do you know, is it Craig Robinson who's on... Yeah, Craig Robinson. He's on The Office. Mm-hmm. So he's the main lead in Beverly Left Lynn. Like, he plays Beverly Left Lynn. Mm-hmm. And apparently he did the movie because of the fact he was such a big fan of the Greasy Strangler. Mm. And I guess he worked with Sky Elabar for, like, weeks on end, right? Mm-hmm. And only knew, or only found out, like, again, like a month into production that, like, oh my God, you're Braden, you know, because of the fact that Sky Elabar had, again, he's just, he's lost all that weight. He doesn't look like how he does, you know.
He definitely looks very different.
Yeah, and
some people just look better with beards. This is why I haven't shaved ever since I got mine.
It's like, also, I forgot to mention, like, even when they're technically not naked, there's, like, majority of the time these people are just walking around in their underwear at home, like just just Ronnie and Braden just wearing their. It's not like they're wearing boxers; they're wearing, like, the tightest of tighty whities. So, like, you just have, like, Braden's giant gut, like, just hanging off of him. And it's just
they seem to have this weird house rule where, like, as soon as they walk through the door, they immediately strip down to their underwear. You know how, like, some people want you to leave. Like, you go over to some relative's house and they ask you to take your shoes off at the door. It's like that, but it's everything.
Yeah.
Like, whenever it's just the two of them at home, they're just wearing nothing but underwear.
It's like, okay, I guess your guys are close and comfortable enough to be in that state of undress around each other.
I kind of want to know what happened to this man that has made him so obsessed with Grease, but at the same time, I'm kind of glad that they didn't try to explain it. You know,
right?
It could have turned into a colossal situation if they had tried to explain it.
Oh yeah, I do like that they do make Ronnie very much so into an enigma. As to, you just know that he is a complete asshole. His wife left him. We do know the most about Braden's upbringing, of having been raised in like a broken home and being abused by his stepfather and forcing him to move back with his father. He's like a very emotionally scarred man-child.
Ricky Prickles, his stepfather.
Ricky Prickles, yes, that's who he was.
I was trying to remember the name. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so crazy, and you know, at the same time, you have like Big Ronnie, who's just every once in a while he just shows up out of nowhere, covered in grease, to strangle whatever person pissed him off that day, and it's always done in the most over-the-top fashion with eyeballs. It's always eyeballs popping out of their skulls. If not, it's always like a very it's. In a way, it's kind of oddly reminds me of like a 50s B-movie monster movie, where like the monster would be on the loose and every so often he would kill, take another victim's life. And then, you know, it ultimately culminates in like a big showdown at the very end of the movie. Something like that.
We should also probably mention the cannibalism aspect, which is, you know, potentially it might be the grossest thing in the movie, depending on what your what your sensibilities are, but it's done in a very sort of outrageous and
oh yeah, that's right, he eats the eyeballs.
Yeah, he eats pieces of several different people. He doesn't start out the movie doing that. I think it's like the second or third murder that we first see him like eat part of somebody.
Right.
Very interesting.
And there's that part where there's Braden's I'm not sure if they established him as a best friend. He was just like a random dude with a pig nose who just shows up named Oinker, and then he's eventually killed.
And I'm not sure why. Like, maybe I missed something. I'm not sure what he did to piss off Ronnie.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why I also don't know why he murdered the black guy, to be honest with you. I'm not sure.
Oinker had very good shoes, if you remember.
Oh yeah, I do remember him bringing that up.
Did
you kill him for the shoes?
I don't know why he got. I have no idea, and I have no idea why he killed. I know the actor's name. I forget the character's name, but Gil Gex, the guy who plays the blind car wash owner.
Yeah,
I don't know why he kills him and decapitates him, but
Big something. He called him. He was Big Ronnie, and then he called him Big something else.
Yeah, what was his? Big Paul. That's right, Big Paul.
Yeah.
I love that character. That guy cracks me up.
Yeah, I do like there's the banter between Ronnie and Paul. And maybe it's just one of those things where it's like he's a serial killer. Maybe he's going more and more crazy as the movie goes on. So it's like the excuses for his murder become more and more nonsensical, just maybe as a representation that he's losing his mind more and more. So like you'd figure that would factor into the resolution of this movie, but it doesn't. Not really. Maybe it's just like the more angry he gets, the more outrageous his reasons for killing are.
The greasier he gets.
Yeah. You know, that's one thing I was disappointed with this movie. It's like I was expecting some weird reasoning for why he periodically shows up covered in grease. My theory was that because he eats so much grease, he's like sweating grease, and when he's like, that's like the grease is literally pouring out of his skin, and that's why he's naked. But no, he just has
the same thing happens to me.
You're going deep with the lore here. Sorry, not to interrupt.
The same thing happens to me, but it's just called acne. No, but yeah, I was also expecting some sort of a like a weird like some sort of like Lovecraftian like weird shit going on, but it's just he just has a vat.
I was expecting. Go ahead.
He just
Sometimes
has a
a greasy strangler is just a greasy strangler, you know.
he's just got a fucking barrel of canola oil or whatever in his closet, and he just lowers himself down into it.
You guys ever hear of a movie called The Oily Maniac, made by the Shaw Brothers, like sometime in the 70s?
No, but is this like a parody of that?
You know what? I don't think anybody really knows, but there's a lot of parallels to that. You guys should look that up. It's a little strange. In that movie, a guy lowers himself into a vat of oil to become the Oily Maniac, who's just like a tokusatsu monster who goes around and starts killing people. And it's weird, man. It's not a good movie. I'm not a real big fan of that flick. I think it's a little bit too
that's where you draw the line, then.
Well, dude, you know that Greasy Strangler doesn't have like gratuitous rape scenes in it. You know what I mean? Oily Maniac does, and I think it kind of delights in that. And I personally speaking, I don't find any pleasure in watching that, even if it is just smutty filmmaking, which, you know, you can argue Greasy Strangler is too, but it's weird. Like, there's some really weird parallels between those two flicks.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I just shared. Let's just share it again. There we go. So yeah, just check out this image in there. It's like, I kind of want to cross over now.
Yeah.
I'm getting a 404 not found.
All right, you can check the second link I shared. I'm looking at the Japanese poster. Oyuruman. He almost kind of looks like a mascot for for a toothpaste commercial.
This is a Japanese film. Interesting.
Chinese, actually.
Chinese, yeah.
Chinese.
Yeah, gotcha. it just happens to have a Japanese poster as well as.
Andres, I am asking you on the air, if you ever happen to be at a book off or any video store in Japan, and you happen to find a Japanese edition of the Greasy Strangler, buy it for me, and I will pay you back in full. I don't care if it's the same shit that I have on my editions. I don't care. I want a Japanese edition of the Greasy Strangler if it exists.
Okay, I'll certainly look it up, but you do know that you're still going to owe me. Yeah.
I was just going to say what you will about the Greasy Strangler and like the obvious bodysuit that he's wearing underneath all the grease. Mm-hmm. At least it looks like grease. What's going on with this oily? He looks like Swamp Thing. Like, why does oil turn him into Swamp Thing? Or the creature from the haunted sea? I don't understand the connection.
Yeah, it's you're right about that. It is like definitely a bodysuit that the actor who plays Ronnie is wearing when he's the Greasy Strangler. Although, yeah, it definitely looks good for the most part, except when you look at the crotch region, which I really don't want to. You can tell there's like some weird webbing going around between the legs.
All the problems with watching this movie come from looking at the crotch. Just look away, Andres.
I can't. I can't.
Focus on the top half of the frame.
apparently the Greasy suits were like hell to wear. They were heavy. It was always cold outside, and it was apparently really awful. It sounded like that both those guys went through a lot of stuff.
Wow. You know what? Honestly, it's like thinking about it, like you meant, like I gotta definitely give props to these people for being brave enough to do what they do on screen. And like, especially for I would say like Elizabeth DeRozzo, who plays the main female lead, Janet.
Oh, she commits to this role. Let me tell
Right.
you, she does some shit that I'm like, how much did they have to pay this woman?
No, it's like ugly dudes on screen. That's nothing new, I would say. But for a woman of her body type, what's the best way of saying this while being as respectful as possible? It definitely takes a lot of bravery to do what she did as an actress on screen. I'm not sure if she has done stuff like this in the past, but given the unconventional nature of this film, I will definitely give her props for what she does in this movie in her constant state of undress.
What Andres is trying to say is that she's fat, and he can't say it, but I can because I am a fat person. So I have the card. No.
I'm not trying to sound weird here, and I'm an engaged man, and I'm also not trying to like, chat it up or anything.
Mm.
But Elizabeth DeRozzo she's an attractive woman. She is on the heavier side for sure. She's like I think she's just like a short Mexican lady, but she's by no means, I would argue, unattractive. Unconventional. You can definitely make that argument, but it's I could definitely see where you're saying like with the bravery aspect of it, but she has a pretty like solid filmography in comedy and stuff like that. So and also I'm like you though, I don't know the extent of what she's done stuff. But I would argue that out of all of the people that appear in this movie in various states of undress, she is
comparatively speaking, yeah.
I think she is by far the better one that you probably want to see, and that's not even talking just from the male perspective,
Right.
But she's fucking great in this movie.
At least she doesn't have any prosthetics on her.
Yeah, she has the oh fuck, what did she call it in the commentary? Yeah, but she has the pube thing that she wears, to cover her actual crotch.
Oh really? Okay, so that part's unnatural.
Oh, she's wearing like a, what do they call it? Like a merkin? She's wearing like a merkin?
Yeah, that's what it is, a merkin. Yeah, sorry.
Pretty much a merkin. Pretty much like a weave for your crotch.
Yeah, a merkin is like it's literally like a toupee that you wear for pubes.
Why does that exist? Why do I did not need to know that exists.
Some people are bald down there, and they wanna project a feeling of health and hairiness. I don't know. There's also an aspect, because I'm looking at Google images of her right now, and you're right.
Yeah,
she's definitely not a bad looking person.
Definitely not.
But there's also an aspect of this movie where people are made to look worse than they actually look anyway.
Right. I was about to say that. Yeah, this movie does her no favors in terms of like makeup, costuming, cinematography, lighting. All of that is working against her and everyone else equally across the board.
Also, the hair is not great. The little red like fro thing that she's got, it's not good.
I've often kind of theorized about why that kind of exists in Hosking's work, because that, again, this is something that is very apparent throughout his entire stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to throw shade or anything, or sound like a judgmental prick, but Jim Hosking himself is a little odd looking. You know what I mean? Like he's a little. He looks like a character for one of his movies, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. And that's not saying anything bad. I mean, he looks like a normal dude. I mean, that's the thing. These people look like normal people. They don't look like movie stars, glamorous and sexy. But I definitely feel like I'm very curious about why he finds such, I guess, interest in exploring that, because again, this is something that you see across the board in all of his work. It's really not just in this one. It's in all of his shorts. It's in his next feature. It's on the TV show that he does for Adult Swim. It's weirdly fascinating. But yes, unattractive people, definitely a trope for Jim Hosking.
I mean, it's like
that makes sense. It's like when you watch a Tim Burton movie, there's usually at least one like sort of weird like self-insert character, you know. I think it's a similar thing.
Right, totally. And I just shared an image for Dillion for visual aid. And yeah, I can see that. Yeah, he's like,
this is the kind of person who winds. I'm not making any accusations about him. I'm just saying the look of him. He looks like the sort of person who at some point winds up sitting across from Chris Hansen on live TV. You know what I mean?
Oh Jesus! Again, I'm not trying to cast shade about how the guy looks. I mean, I'm no fucking looker myself, but
none
like
of us are.
It's just one of those things where it's like when you start thinking about things like, well, why is that? And then it's like, well, you know, you see some similarities, or your mind thinks of some similarities. So maybe it's the most insulting thing in the fucking world, but it is interesting to talk about for sure.
Right. And so I guess going back to the film itself, it's like, the craziness gets, everything gets more and more crazy once the love triangle heats up. You have the girl who's dating Braden, and then hooks up with Ronnie, and then goes back to Braden. You have several sex scenes, like very unpleasant sex scenes, and then like you see Ronnie's penis, you see Braden's penis. Which,
hold on.
Yeah.
Braden's penis has a name, I hope you know. Did you catch that line?
Oh my god, I forgot. I wish I did not know. Why did you have to remind me of that?
Do you remember? Do you remember what his name is? Dylan, do you remember what his name is?
I don't.
It's Rodney. Come on, Rodney, get in the game. Sorry, I had to interrupt you strictly for that.
Why did he give his penis? Why would you give your penis a name that's one letter off from your dad's name? That's weird.
Oh my god, you're right.
Ow! Wow, I didn't even think about that. Damn.
There's something going on there.
Wow, Jesus, I never thought about that before. You're right.
Maybe he wants his penis to be more like his dad.
Yeah, obviously, yes,
because he says several times, his dad is a smoothie.
That's true. That is true. Oh, that's amazing. I'm gonna have to fucking digest that one. That's fucking brilliant.
And to give context to the viewer who most likely have not seen this movie, yeah, while Ronnie has a massive prosthetic penis that's supposed to be real in the context of the film, Braden, on the other hand, has a very tiny, like, micro penis. It's like you're wondering, it's like, is it even going up? Is it even capable of penetration?
Yeah, one wonders why Ronnie was in the disco scene in the 70s as opposed to porn. Like, he could have made a lot of money.
I mean, who knows? Maybe he was. Maybe it was both.
Maybe he was. Because that's the kind of penis that you see, in porn. That you're like, does that even exist in the wild? I don't know.
Right, you gotta be like a Ron Jeremy motherfucker to do that sort of thing.
Meanwhile, the son has the kind of penis that shows up in a very different niche sort of fetishy type of porn.
The worst thing about explaining this movie is that we have a friend named Brayton, which is very close to Braden.
Oh,
so like when I'm talking about Braden,
every time you say his name, I hear it a little bit.
Yeah. So when I'm talking about Braden's penis, it's like, oh god.
So wait, Brayton, is that Scottish?
No. I forgot what he's Canadian.
He's from Canada.
He's
Canadian, but I mean,
I'm quoting the movie. I'm quoting the movie. Sorry. I'm sorry. That's how much of a nerd I am. That's what Janet says when she first hears Braden's name. So sorry, I just saw an opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You see, I've only seen the movie once, unlike you, Matt. And
dude, I can't even tell you how many times I've seen that, and I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying I can't even tell you how many times I've seen it.
Matt just watched it again right before this recording,
I actually really did. I watched it last night in preparation for this tonight. Like, I watched the commentary and all this stuff just because I wanted to be prepared.
But no, we're not making any speculations about the size of our friend Braden's penis. We are talking about fictional character Braden and his visible on screen with a D, but not very much of a D.
I was gonna say that.
Braden with a lowercase d.
Holy shit!
Oh man,
it's incredible.
It's so eventually the two plot points somewhat go together, where Braden finally starts to suspect that his dad is the Greasy Strangler, and so I remember at that point, the moment he tries to go out and try to prove he's the Strangler, I remember Dillion at that point, you said, "Oh, so this movie finally has a plot now."
Yeah, I looked at Andres and said, "Andres, we're 2/3 of the way through this movie, and it just developed a plot." And he goes, "Oh my god."
And
because before that it was just sort of a series of scenes, and it was like sort of rather rinse repeat a little bit, you know. Something happens, the dad gets greasy, kills somebody, you know, and then there was like the side plot with the girlfriend. Once he's like, "I think my dad's the Greasy Strangler and I'm going to prove it," that's when the real plot begins. And that's when we get that ridiculous scene where Ronnie shows up dressed as the detective and has like the long nails and the horrible mustache.
Right,
Jody.
And trying to convince to convince Braden that that his father can't possibly be the Greasy Strangler. And throughout this whole time, I couldn't even pay attention to what he was saying, because all I can think of was, given how bizarre this movie is, are we supposed to assume this is a different character entirely, or is he really doing this or is he really just Ronnie in disguise? Because for one thing, he's wearing jeans, he's wearing full-on pants, which is something Ronnie would never do.
But that's what makes it such a good disguise, Andres.
It's definitely Ronnie trying to disguise himself, for sure.
If you spend most of your life Daffy Ducking it, then the best disguise you can do is put on a pair of fucking pants.
Yeah. Right, and eventually, like the very end of the movie is just really unpredictable. It's like, again, my mind was going elsewhere, like in terms of predicting where it was going. So it's like at that one point, Ronnie has had it with Janet. He becomes a Greasy Strangler. He kidnaps her, starts strangling her, and Braden decides he finds the vat of grease and becomes a Greasy Strangler himself. And at that point, I thought, wait, is this going to go into, like, War of the Gargantuas territory? Are we going to have Strangler on Strangler violence here? Because that'd be awesome.
What I was expecting was more of, like, a Halloween 4 situation, or I guess Friday the 13th 4 also, where, like, he would kill his dad, and then he would become the new Greasy Strangler.
Or I was also thinking of, like, Frankenstein, where, you know, like, or Frankenstein, or like Creature from the Black Lagoon, where, like, the main monster kidnaps the leading lady. The hero has to go in and slay the beast and rescue the girl at the end. But no, like, it just takes a complete 180 with Braden strangling the Janet herself, and it's like, she was a bad person after. So it's like, it's no big deal. It's like, wait, huh? That kind of makes sense, huh? It's like she was kind of somewhat of someone who was just like going back and forth between the two of them with no remorse.
Yeah, you know, I'm actually really glad that it ended that way, because I didn't like her as a character. You know,
I kind of liked her because
you like her when they first introduce her, but then when she, in the middle of the movie, when she starts fucking around with Big Ronnie, you're like, well, what the fuck, you know?
Right. I was honestly rooting for Braden. It's like, I want him to find a love interest and to finally get away from his horrible father. But it's like, no, wait, no, she is kind of a bad person, I guess. I guess she is kind of a bad person then.
There is a weird logic to it. There is definitely a logic to it.
The interesting thing is she starts sleeping with him, with the dad, after, I'm pretty sure it was after Braden had already told her that he thought his dad might be the Greasy Strangler.
No, I think that was after. I think she slept with him, and then she got back with Braden, and that's when Braden said, "I think my dad's the Greasy Strangler."
Yeah. I think it was. I think it was after.
Although, what's really strange,
I could have swore he mentioned it. I could have swore he mentioned it at least once prior to her hooking up with Big Ron. I might be wrong, though.
No, I think he just mentions how much of an asshole he is, and maybe that's what got her all interested in him in the first place. But it's so weird. It's like, she just broke up with Braden to hook up with Ronnie, and so it just makes every single moment with all three of them on screen to be super uncomfortable, especially in Braden's case. Like the fact
especially in the scene where she's like sitting on the dad's lap,
right,
like eating breakfast or whatever.
Or even worse.
This is like, and I think that was like immediately after the Hootie Tootie Disco Cutie scene, or it was somewhere near there.
Just like Hootie Tootie Disco Cutie scene. That was like the most uncomfortable like situation you could put anyone in.
No, Janet, not your ass!
Oh God! And they were doing that little dance. Like she was. It almost looked like she was. It almost looked like she was flossing or something. And
she was just like
going back and forth.
She's just spreading her ass cheeks in front of Braden.
And it just keeps going
and going. That's
apparently that was actually one of the most embarrassing scenes for the director to film, because they actually had a double who just all she did was to come on to spread her ass cheeks, and he said apparently the director was extraordinarily embarrassed by the situation. But just a fun little tidbit.
As were we all.
And yeah, that was it. It's like, I could put up with a lot of the weirdness this movie had, but that was the scene that broke me, because it, like Dillion said, it kept going on and on and on and on ad nauseum. And I was like, where is this going? What is the purpose of this? What is the purpose of any of this?
Yeah, and they do the same thing in the bullshit artist scene, but the bullshit artist scene is great because it's one of those things where they keep repeating the joke until it stops being funny, and then they push even further beyond until it circles back around to being funny again.
Right.
I don't know if the Hootie Tootie Disco Cutie scene quite closed that same loop, but yeah, the bullshit artist scene really managed to get there, and if you could pull that off, it's a great trick.
Right. And what was also kind of like bizarre, it's like I'm losing my train of thought here, where eventually Janet goes back with Braden, and at that point Braden suspects that his dad is the Greasy Strangler, and so he tells Janet this. Both of them are aware of the fact that his father might be a serial killer, and yet they continue to visit each other and sleep with each other at his house.
Right. I don't know why he ever brought her to that house to begin with.
Right.
If I was him, I'd be like, we're going to your place.
Right. And they never go to her place.
Within a mile. I would not bring her within a mile of my weird dad and his dick window. I would keep that strictly out. Even if maybe she doesn't have a place that she can bring somebody to, or maybe it's too small or whatever. Get a hotel room or something. Like, there's got to be another option.
Right. And again, it kind of goes into like the surrealist nature of this movie, where almost nothing makes sense, and yet there's some weird, bizarre internal logic to all of this.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. It's I completely lost my train of thought right there. I was going to say something really deep and really, thought-provoking, but it just went out the fucking window right there. I'm sorry, it went right out the dick window. So
I would also compare this movie a little bit to like a way more adult, like dark version of like a Napoleon Dynamite or something like that, that just really,
enough.
Really weird, sort of quirky, sort of, especially with like a lot of the performances. Because when you first start watching the movie, it's a little off-putting how bad some of the performances come off. And then the more of the movie you watch, the more you realize, oh no, this is very much intentional. Like, it's just like awkward line readings and like really long periods of dead space in between line deliveries. Like somebody will say something and then the other character will just like wait a second or two before they give their response.
Right, where it's like you can tell that they're getting ready to, the actor is getting ready to recite their line, as opposed to, like, whoever edited this movie edited it in a way where it's like, you can see the actors getting ready to recite their line in a very unnatural way that you normally see in most movies.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of like that like snappy dialogue that they introduced like back in the 40s, you know, where characters like talking over each other and you know, like all that. Like whenever you get like a dude and a chick in like an old screwball comedy and they're just like going back and forth. Like it's the exact opposite of that. It's like, oh, yeah, well, you must think I'm the Greasy Strangler. And then you cut to the other person and they sit there for a second and then they go, what? No, I didn't say that. Like it's...
And you're absolutely correct in that it's totally deliberate, and that's one of the things I really enjoy about this movie. I know that might sound a little weird, but like, it's so many people like get a kick out of like just badly made movies because the directing, the acting, the cinematography are just all incompetent. You know, you're talking your Tommy Wiseau's, you're talking, you know, any number of B movies that you could find on like Amazon Prime or something. But like, I would argue that with this one, like, yes, it might be bad per se, but it was done intentionally. The fact that they like, you know, settle there's no cut on the actor who's like mooning the camera for like a full 10 seconds, you know, it's just this uncomfortable length of time. It's purely intentional, you know. Or when Braden, I think he makes his dad some greasy sausages for breakfast, and they just sit there and nod to each other for like, again, 10 to 15 seconds, and the music's just playing, and then there's a cut, you know, and you're just like, what the fuck? But it's not because like the editing's bad, it's because that was done deliberately. And again, whether or not it is funny, you know, in the opinion of people, you know, is obviously up for debate, but it's one of the things, again, I appreciate about it. It's like, it was crafted to be like that, you know, and it's kind of fun in its own weird way.
Yeah, I mentioned that to Andres when we were watching it. That is a really long mooning, and it made me think about this. It made me think about this. I've never mooned or done any mooning in real life, so I don't like. I've never really thought about it before. I've only ever seen it in movies, and there must be a weird moment of like, when do you pull your pants back up? Like, how long do you hold it? You know, like, how do you navigate? It's a little bit like in, I forget which Austin Powers movie it was, where they did the joke of like, the evil villains are doing the villain laugh, and like the scene just holds on them way longer than a movie normally would do. And then they reach that awkward stage where like they're done laughing. It's like, it's a little bit like that. The fact that it's deliberately bad though is in a way, just as impressive as if it had been done really well on purpose, because, you know, normally if you try to do something bad on purpose, it backfires on you. You know, that's why those Sharknado movies are so bad. Or like, you know, Birdemic 2 bad on or Birdemic 1 bad on accident, Birdemic 2 bad on purpose, and there's a big difference.
Totally. And it walks a really fine line. And again, some people might look at this movie and just be like, oh, well, you're full of shit for saying this, but I really do feel like the makers, the crew, and the actors actually did give a shit about what they were trying to do. I mean, they knew they had to be over the top and stuff like this, but like there's a weird line that they walk that I would argue that they actually, you know, succeed in pulling off, you know, because to me it doesn't come off like a Birdemic or something, you know. It's just weird.
Yeah, and it's like almost like sort of like it's a very intricate. It's like a lot. They take a lot of their like lesser qualities, like the acting, and they kind of utilize them in like the best way possible. Where it's like, sure, the acting is very unnatural, but then again, everything about this movie was intricately made to be unnatural. Everything is, like I mentioned at the beginning of the movie, like I said at the beginning of this review, everything feels off about this movie and this world. So it's like everything weirdly meshes well together. almost like a happy accident of sorts. Except it wasn't an accident. It was all it was all intentionally made to be this way, and that's what makes it so bizarrely intriguing about it.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
It feels really genuine in a way, in that it's so weird that you almost don't believe that somebody could have made this shit up, you know?
Right. I guess go ahead.
It feels like it could, like it's so out there and so bizarre that it almost feels like it could happen in real life, despite the really over the top way that it's presented.
Mm-hmm. And I guess in terms of production values, this movie it comes across like a super low budget movie, given the limited amount of characters and limited amount of sets involved in this film. We really only go to like the club, the car wash, the house, and like whatever few locations that's part of the disco tour. And like
there are a few other places, like the pig guy's apartment.
Oh yeah,
we're in there for like 2 seconds. The movie theater, the guy's trailer. Like, who shits in front of an open window? Why would you do that?
Yeah,
the budget was only, I think, a few million, if that. It was super low budget, and I know I'm just being a fucking advocate for this movie and be like, I'd argue this.
He's pro Strangler.
I am pro Strangler.
He's pro Grease.
Pro Grease, you know.
He's a greasy pro Strangler.
I'm a supporter of oily individuals. I think that it was there was care actually taken into, again, like the cinematography and stuff like that. It's the lighting and stuff. It doesn't come across crudely made, I think. That I would also throw the special effects in there. There's actually a couple of visual effects too that are kind of cool, like when Ronnie, as the Greasy Strangler, takes off Oinker's nose and dips his finger into the nose, kind of swirls it around like salsa, like that was a purely digital effect. And I'm not sitting here saying like, oh my God, look at the amazing computer graphics, but it is kind of fun. I mean, again, and maybe I'm just talking out of my ass, which is completely honestly possible, but I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah,
I would ask you, as somebody who has seen this movie more times than possibly any other human, how do you interpret the ending? Because the ending feels very symbolic to me, in a way that, like, a lot of movies, you watch it the first time and you're like, well, what the fuck did that mean? And you have to watch it a few more times to kind of form an opinion. So, seeing as how we've only seen it once, I wonder if you would give us your interpretation.
So, well, first of all, thank you for asking that question, actually, because I actually wanted to get your guys' interpretation of that thing too.
Oh, I have no fucking idea. So whatever you say will be very enlightening.
But I do have an idea.
Go ahead, Andres. Go ahead.
Well, I guess to give context again, what happens at the end of the movie, from what we see directly on screen, Ronnie and Braden, they decide to become Greasy Stranglers together. They have bonded over the death of Janet, and they now have like a deeper appreciation and understanding for each other. And so both of them decide to team up and use their powers as Greasy Stranglers to get revenge on, what was his name, Prickle?
Ricky Prickles.
Ricky Prickles, yes. And so they go out of his way to hunt him down wherever he lives and kick his ass and strangle the fuck out of him. At which point they see themselves being shot to death by hunters, being executed, executed, like they are killed execution style, old school execution style, tied to poles.
Firing squad.
Like a firing squad, yeah. So they are watching themselves dressed up in their regular clothes. So the Greasy Strangler versions of themselves are watching the regular versions of themselves getting executed, and the Greasy with the regular versions of themselves dead, the Greasy Strangler versions pretty much just like go off into the woods, hand in hand, off to potentially find another person to strangle.
Didn't their heads explode too? Didn't that happen?
Yes, their heads did explode.
A shower of champagne and confetti, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that I remembered that correctly because I wasn't sure if that did happen or if it was just the booze. I was drinking when we watched this.
That's probably the best way to watch this movie, in all honesty.
I mean, maybe acid. I don't know. Yeah, and then I also thought it was interesting because the way Braden had described Prickles earlier in the movie, it was like he's like this buff guy, like you expect him to be like this, like. Yeah, and then you see him, and he's just another average-looking like schmuck, like everybody else in the movie,
with a bad wig, you know.
Yeah, another bad wig.
I love the character of Ricky Prickles. It cracks me up. Just the stories about him, and then again you see him at the end, and you're just like, really? Like that's awful.
Was Big Ronnie's hair a wig too? Because it reminds
his real hair. That's his real hair.
Because it reminds me of those memes from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where Danny DeVito is dressed up like, what's his name? The modern artist guy who took the pictures of the soup cans. Anyway, he's dressed like that guy and he's got like the big white wig on and he's going around going like, now this I love. Like it reminded me of those.
No, dude, that was totally genuine. Like Michael St. Michael's had apparently just this lustrous, creamy mane.
Andy Warhol.
There you go.
I can never think of that man's name when I need to. Yeah, Andy Warhol.
But going back to that ending, it's probably, if I'm going to be completely honest, it might be one of my my least favorite things about the movie. I don't. This just comes from a place of personal bias. I don't particularly think they knew how to end it. It comes across. It comes across to me as a ending that they threw together to try to say something or try to make you think they were saying something, but in fact they were just saying nothing at all. It was just kind of like, well, shit, how are we gonna, do this? Apparently there was an alternate ending that was shot where like they were, I guess, running down some street or something hand in hand in slow motion as like cops or somebody were chasing them, as this greasy duo, out strangling the world.
I thought that would be a better ending, honestly. If you just cut from them on the beach at the end when they go like, she was a bitch anyway, or whatever the line was. If you just cut from like that to them like running from some cops and then like freeze frame, like I feel like that would be a better. It's sort of like at the end of the Joker when he's running down the hallway and the Orderlies are after him. Totally,
and I don't look much into it. Because I personally speaking, I don't think this movie's trying to say anything. I don't think this movie's trying to make some kind of like hardcore statement on life or society or anything like that. Sure. And I think they were just trying to make some kind of absurd ending. I am super curious, like how the director was trying to explain this to the actors, and what was going through the heads of the actors, and if they were just like, well, I mean, we've come this far, this is just one more thing. But it's not my favorite thing about the movie, the ending, because I'm kind of in agreement. I think it definitely could have gone a different way for sure.
Mm-hmm. For me, when I first saw the movie, my interpretation of the ending was that they had like the shots of them being executed was so ridiculous. It's like it pushes the envelope. It not push the envelope. It definitely went way, like there was always this line between like feeling very realistic and also feeling very like a heightened reality. But this one of them like exploding in champagne and confetti, flying out, it was very over the top and did not really match the tone that this movie set up at all. And so I was thinking that the visuals of them being executed is actually happening. They're just imagining this in their heads. It's all in their heads. And so maybe I saw it as a representation that they were giving up their lives as living as normal people and are just going to spend the rest of their lives as crazy, greasy, strangling monsters. Because that's one thing. That's one thing I didn't mention is that like throughout the movie, anytime Ronnie or in this case Brayden, they are covered in grease, they make these unnatural monster sounds. So I'm constantly thinking, is like the grease like changing them into monsters? Does it affect their brains of some kind? Because like Brayden certainly didn't act like himself when he was strangling Janet once he was covered in grease. So I figured, is there some sort of weird 50s monster mutation thing going on here?
I think the interpretation that you offered up is it's very similar to like one that my best friend also kind of came up with, like, oh, they give into like their bestial selves kind of thing,
Yeah.
And I definitely think that if you want to read into it, you could definitely make some arguments. And I mean, it's all fucking subjective anyways. You know what I mean? Like it could very well be that. But I would agree that.
I'm sorry, finish your sentence. I didn't mean
to.
No,
go ahead. No, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I wonder if it is something inherent in the grease. Like, you eat enough grease and something just happens to your brain. That's how the guy started.
Yeah, they literally grease up your brain until it's like battered and fried and all fucked up.
Yeah, it's like Joe Rogan has a stand-up bit about vegans, and his theory is that like when you eat enough plants, the plants start talking to you and they go like, "Tell others about us." Like it's like that, except it's like murder.
And I mean, if we really wanted to kind of like make this movie realistic and stuff, then you could totally fill in the blanks with that kind of stuff. But this is the minute you mentioned it before, Andres, the minute that the Greasy Strangler punches the tourist in the face, and it's that Looney Tunes cartoon moment. Yeah. You just know that you're no longer playing in the world of reality. So
right.
this ridiculous ending of getting shot by a firing squad and their heads explode and champagne for whatever reason is that very well could be happening in reality.
Yeah,
totally.
Maybe
totally.
Who knows? Maybe it's the reverse. Maybe they actually did die, and that this is their afterlife, just living as father and son, greasy monsters. That's their afterlife.
Yeah.
If this discussion has told me anything, it's that I would love to see somebody try to make like a Room 237 style documentary about the Greasy Strangler. Like, what does it mean?
You can see there's so many visuals of penises. It's got to have a deeper meaning to all of this. What is it trying to say about the state of masculinity in Western culture?
And that's when I realized that this movie is really about the rape of the Native Americans. And you're like, what?
I think it's just so. I mean, whenever people watch something, obviously, I think the immediate reaction to something that we don't understand is like, why? Like there's got to be a deeper meaning to this or something. But I really do feel like, even like just kind of diving into like some stuff the director said, I really feel like he just fucking made this movie because he wanted to make it. Mm-hmm. Like there's no. There isn't any. It's more shallow than it is deep. You know what I mean? Like,
right. He just wants to make weird shit for the sake of making weird shit.
Yeah, because it amuses him. I mean, it's like there's a quote I wrote down that he said. It's like he was just talking about like basically for him, like this movie's like the equivalent of like one big in joke with your friends, right? Like it's just like. It's really funny to you guys, but like you try to explain it to somebody else and they'll just be like, that's fucking weird. Like, I don't get it, but like, that's kind of the place where he was coming from, I think. But I still think it's interesting because you could totally derive a whole bunch of fucking weird, crazy theories about like what this movie's like trying to say and shit.
It's the Evangelion of absurdist horror comedy of absurdist horror comedies.
Totally.
Where it's like all the symbolism means nothing, but people still
except in this case the director is upfront about the fact that it means nothing. In Evangelion's case, it's more of like no, it means something, I swear.
In that case, the idea where it's like it's one big in-joke and that it's weird for the sake of being weird, it reminds me a little bit of the movie Freddy Got Fingered, where it's just
Jesus.
it's just Tom Green just fucking around with audiences. But
Daddy, would you like some sausages?
Look, I found some treasure. Get out of my shower. He's a molester. He's a child molester. But I feel like with that movie's a bit too normal looking. It's like,
Okay. I don't think anybody's ever said that about Freddy Got Fingered.
well,
All right.
in comparison to the Greasy Strangler, it's too normal.
I'll go with you down this rabbit hole. Okay.
It's like, yeah, with Freddy Got Fingered, it's easily, you can tell that's Tom Green just fucking around. He's given a lot of money to make a movie, and so he just makes the ultimate shitpost ever. To which it's a movie that nobody likes. And I can't help but feel like this is sort of similar to that, where it's like, I'm gonna go ahead and make the most unpleasant film imaginable because that's what I find funny. But I don't feel like that's the case with Tom Green. I don't think he thinks this is all the stuff he's doing on screen is funny. He's just doing it just for the reaction of the audience. Like, the comedy from him is the reaction, whereas here, the comedy for the director is the stuff that's in the movie itself.
This is what happens when you watch The Greasy Strangler. You find yourself saying things like, Freddy Got Fingered. That's like normie shit, man. Like,
The thing is, it's like, there's nothing normie about The Greasy Strangler, but with Freddy Got Fingered, it's like, you can start to think, okay, beyond Tom Green's character himself, everything else feels rather too conventional, if you know what I mean. So for any of you who thought that that Freddy Got Fingered was too normal, go watch The Greasy Strangler. And so, like, that's ultimately what comes down to my feelings on The Greasy Strangler, where it's like, it's a movie that's made to be unpleasant as possible, and slightly unpleasant, what have you, and it's done that for the sake of comedy, because unpleasantness is from what Matt's telling me, that's what the director found to be, that's what he finds funny. And so, it's like, I kept thinking to myself, it's like, yeah, it goes out of its way to do something, and it does something. Is that a good thing? Does that count as entertainment? But yeah, it's like, if the intention was to make people with this sort of sick sense of humor laugh, then yeah, I guess it is a good thing, and definitely falls under good entertainment. So, like, I guess since we've talked about this movie for roughly an hour and a half now, I guess it's about time to wrap things up. Oh, I did forget one thing. So apparently there were like 45 minutes of footage that was edited out of the movie, according to IMDb. Do you know anything about this, Matt? And if so, how the hell could there be 45 minutes of this stuff cut out?
Have you seen these deleted scenes? Are they on your Blu-ray or whatever?
They are, actually. Some of them are. And I'm not going to lie, disappointing. The majority of the stuff that was cut was like super duper extended dialogue scenes.
Was it just like 45 minutes of hootie tootie disco cuties?
Similar, like not necessarily like just 45 minutes like of incessant like just looped lines, or something like that, of like the guy saying Porto like 25 different times, but like it's extended dialogue scenes that don't really add much, and they're not really that funny, and it just drags. And the Australian Blu-ray does have some of them on there. I do believe, and this is just, I haven't looked at it recently, but I think the Greasy Strangler Facebook page actually like posted a couple of like storyboards and stuff, and there was like some other attacks that I don't know that were filmed or not, but they were at least storyboarded of the Greasy Strangler like attacking the people that worked at the movie theater and stuff. But according to the people who made it, and as well as the deleted scenes on the Blu-ray, it's all dialogue based, and I think it clocked in at over 2.25 hours, I think, and it just it was probably for the better that those 45 minutes were taken out, I would argue.
It sounds like the rough cut had a similar problem to like Ghostbusters 2016, where the jokes would just go on for way too long to the point where they stopped being funny and didn't circle back around to being funny again.
Oh, totally. Do you remember? Oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Except I was just going to say, except in the case of Ghostbusters 2016, most of the jokes weren't funny to begin with, and then they dragged on. Worse.
A perfect example of one of the deleted scenes was when Braden and Janet are first kind of getting romantic for the first time, right? And she takes her in the finished movie, she lifts up her shirt, she's topless, and Braden gets all weird and like goes in to give a kiss or a suckle, and she goes, "Hey, I didn't say you could do that." And then he freaks out and jumps back, and he's like sighing and like, oh my god. And then the next line is, "Hey, where's my dad?" Like it's just like, wait, what? Like, how do you go from point A to point B? But like, which I love that fucking line, because I think it's fucking hilarious. But in the originally, there was actually like an entire fucking extra 30 seconds of dialogue between them, between the time she says, "I didn't say you could do that," to when he kind of jumps back and they start talking again, But by taking that out, you have this like cool comedic moment, and you lost absolutely nothing. In fact, you enhanced the movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's funny, that scene actually kind of reminded me of that scene in Forrest Gump where Forrest and Ginny are in the they're in the dorm room, and to this day I've seen that movie, plenty of times. To this day, I'm still not entirely sure what happened there. I think an awkward handy or something.
So yeah, so I guess to wrap things up, what are your guys' final thoughts? And do you fully endorse the Greasy Strangler? Or if not, how much endorsement would you give of the Greasy Strangler? Would you endorse it at all to any degree?
Do you want to go first? Or should I?
I guess I'll go first. I've definitely gotten a better appreciation, a better idea of the appeal to the Greasy Strangler through this conversation, and I definitely have a greater appreciation for it and what it was trying to do, and I can definitely see the comedic value in it. However, I feel like, it's definitely one of those movies that takes a while for it to grow on you. And that it's a very particular kind of movie you have a better time watching. It's like one of those movies like you can't really watch it by yourself. The enjoyment of it comes from watching it with other horribly like-minded people like you, or if you just want to get a sick kick out of watching other people's first-time reactions to it. So it's like, it's a movie that I can see myself enjoying in very particular situations, like whether it's through watching it with other friends or watching it inebriated, but it's not a movie I feel like I'm ready to watch it again, especially by myself, not anytime soon. But I am definitely happy to have the memories of watching the Greasy Strangler, and I will definitely look back on these memories with fondness, because as horrified and as scarred as I was through this movie, again, maybe it's Stockholm Syndrome, but I will definitely say I definitely do not regret watching this movie, and I'm glad to have finally been in. I'm now officially part of the in-joke for now on, for the rest of Matt's dark streams on his channel. Now I finally know what the Greasy Strangler is. And I would say, Matt hyped it up to be a super sick fucking movie. And it certainly is. I cannot fully endorse it to, everybody. I can't say, oh, everybody needs to watch this movie. No, I can never bring myself to say that, unfortunately. So it's like, I don't fully endorse it, but I endorse it under specific circumstances. I would lightly endorse it to those brave enough and those sick enough to watch this movie. I know you've heard this you heard us talk about this movie for like an hour and a half. Most of you probably haven't even seen this movie, but if any of this somehow entices you, even if to like a morbidly curious degree, go right into it. that's all us. Those are my finishing thoughts on the Greasy Strangler. So what about you, Dylan?
Yeah, it does almost feel like we've been let into sort of a secret fraternity, right? There's people who have seen the Greasy Strangler, and then there's the other, 98% of humanity. So, I would say pretty much the exact same thing you just said. I think you hit it right on the head. I don't know if I can fully endorse it, just because this is not going to be everybody's cup of tea.
Oh,
but
not everyone's cup of grease.
No, this is not everybody's cup of tea. But if you're a very particular kind of bullshit artist and you have this sort of a taste, if anything we've described here appeals to you, if you enjoy sort of weird out there movies, if you're a John Waters fan, if you're into Tim and Eric, all of those sort of things that we've compared it to, then yeah, I would definitely say check it out. And I think that if you are the sort of person who can get past all of that weirdness, there is certainly some artistic merit in here. And there's something to be gleaned. So yeah, I would also give this a very strong partial endorsement.
That's it, a partial endorsement as opposed to a full endorsement. And so, what about you, my fine greasy friend?
Well, to the surprise of absolutely nobody, I would fully endorse this, but I also strongly agree with what you guys said. This movie's not for everybody. And it's not something that I'm going to go recommend grandma to watch, next Friday night. But it definitely is a movie that for people who love indie films, who, have bizarre senses of humor, and I would argue who are aspiring filmmakers, I'm sorry to attach the word inspiring to this fucking movie. But the fact of the matter is this movie got funded, it got made, and it got made by people who I believe to be talented, who want to try to put out quality work, and you get something like this, This movie has made me laugh more times than I can count. And while I will never sit here and tell anybody it's the greatest movie ever made or anything, it's definitely something I am so glad to have come across in my life, just because it has given I've had so many sit downs and watches with people, or watches of this movie with people, and it's always just been a really enjoyable experience. So fully endorsed. And now, after we're done finishing this podcast, I will go start my 97th watch through of this movie just for this week,
I do have to ask, will you ever show Paige this movie? Because I know last time you talked about it, you were too afraid to let her watch it.
I know, I'm a bitch, dude. I fucking tell all my friends, you gotta watch the Greasy Strangler. I give
and then
my
you
friends
can't even let your own fiance be part of the magic.
No, I can't.
He's afraid of how her watching that movie might reflect on him.
No, you know what it is. You know what it is.
What you got to do is wait until after the marriage has gone through, because at that point they're locked in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Right, exactly.
At that point, leaving becomes very punitive on a legal level. It's like
it's more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah. It's like I forget which comedian had this bit, but it's like, you spend your entire dating life just holding in farts, and then once you get married, you sort of have a moment where you look at each other and go, now? Okay, good. And then you just
God, that's a fucking brilliant comparison. I fucking love that. But you're kind of right. You're kind of right. I showed her Beverly Left Lynn. That's the other movie that the director did.
Right.
And, she enjoyed it. But the thing about that one is that it's much, much
tamer,
less. It's different. Okay. There's still some of the same style of humor in the dialogue and stuff, but there's no prosthetic penises. It's not nearly as gross.
Thank God.
I would say.
It's more of like a traditional movie. Is what you're saying?
It's more of a movie.
Right. Like traditional in the way that we might recognize things on film, but it's still out there. And I think maybe eventually I'll show her, but that's one of the. I think she's one of the people that I don't think would enjoy it, and she has offered to sit through it, but I just don't.
That shows what an amazing person she is.
Oh, dude, yeah, she's like, fucking incredible.
Let me be a part of your world.
I mean, she's very mean, for fuck's sake. Why she's doing that, I have no fucking idea. But I'm lucky enough to have that happen. But
I'm sure she's doing it for you, Matt. and God bless her.
Yes.
This director seems like the kind of person that would be really fascinating to have a conversation with, and just to pick his brain and just say, like, what were you thinking? Like, what was going on in there? Same for Elijah Wood. I'm really fascinated by that piece of the puzzle.
Maybe it's just those Hollywood types. Maybe they're all sick in the head.
Frodo Baggins read the script and said yes, and that's the part that really amazes me.
Oh boy. So, do you think, my last question for you, Matt, is, do you think this could ever potentially become a film to gain a wide cult status, or do you think it'll forever remain in this sort of niche area that it's at right now?
Right, totally. I think anything is possible with this. All it's going to take is that one person with that gigantic social media following that says, like, hey guys, look at this really weird, obscure movie I found. And then suddenly the thing finds itself new life, right? Mm-hmm. It definitely has a cult following. Jim Hosking is a young guy. He's still working. He's still doing stuff in television and feature films and stuff like that. So, all it would take would be, say, like, or another situation could be he could make a feature that is really popular, and then people go and rediscover Greasy Strangler. Right,
kind of like what was it? Like Peter Jackson and his earlier works, like Meet the Feebles or Dead Alive.
Yeah, totally, something like that. I think currently it's probably going to stay in the state that it's in, which is fine, But I really hope. Just for the sake of everyone who worked on these movies and stuff, I really hope that they're able to continue to do more stuff like this, the kind of stuff that, they would, the kind of thing that they would like to see put to film themselves. You know what I mean? If there's a fucking audience for it, I have no fucking idea. But I love the past two features the guy's done, and I really hope there's more to come.
You think it'll eventually grow big enough to form a niche convention called G-Fest, Grease Fest?
Oh, well, I mean, technically G-Fest is Grease Fest. I mean, let's be honest here.
Yes.
But, like, technically speaking, there's already kind of a shared universe going on, because there's stuff in Beverly Left Lynn that is shared in universe with Greasy Strangler. Huh. It's really interesting.
Well, since you've mentioned that movie like 100 times now, maybe I am curious enough now to check out Beverly Left Lynn.
Is there a scene at the end where Sam Jackson comes out and goes, like, I'd like to talk to you about the Greasy Initiative, and then
you become part of a bigger world, motherfuckers.
Bullshit artists.
And that's where the movie ends there.
It's really totally worth checking out. It's much more mainstream. They got bigger actors to be in it. And it's a worthy follow-up, I think. It's different, but I found a lot of enjoyment in it personally.
Awesome. All right, then. So, again, thank you so much, Matt, for introducing us to this film. I mean, again, regardless of how we feel about it, it was certainly, in any case, it was certainly a memorable experience that we won't be forgetting anytime soon, for better or worse. Whether we liked it or not.
Seriously, thank you for both of you guys for first of all allowing me to come on here, but also taking the time and being good sports about watching this really weird fucking movie, for one, and then talking about it for 2 hours. Like, I had a lot of fun, and I really appreciate the opportunity, for sure. So thank you.
I'm very glad to hear that. And so thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. And so for next time, on the 16th episode of Fully Endorsed, it'll be my turn to fully endorse a movie for Dillion, and this time around I'm going to delve into the world of Mexican masked wrestling horror films, since back in the 60s and 70s it was a popular trend back then in Mexico to take these larger than life personas, take them out of the wrestling ring and put them in the world of cinema. And for the majority of the time, you end up having a lot of the most famous, most iconic of masked wrestlers at the time, and put them in situations in which they use their luchador powers to essentially become superheroes / vigilantes / detective, private eye detectives, essentially going off on Scooby-Doo cases, fighting off terrorists and demons and mummies and zombies and vampires and alien invaders, all sorts of wacky shit. It's fun, it's campy, it's ludicrous, it's over the top, and I love it. It's something that's like super near and dear to my heart, and I can't wait to share with Dillion the most famous of these Mexican masked wrestling horror films, Las Mummies de Guanajuato, or translated in English, The Mummies of Guanajuato, featuring Santo, Blue Demon, and Mil Máscaras. And so tune in next time and we'll see if Dillion will also fully endorse this film as much as I did.
I'm excited. I'm a little scared. My exposure to this world pretty much taps out at the animated series Mucha Lucha. I don't know if anybody remembers that. Mucha
Lucha.
So this will be fascinating.
If you're ever curious to know what the hell gave Rob Zombie the idea to produce the haunted world of El Superbeasto, tune in next time to find out. So, yes, where can people find you, Matt?
They can follow us over on YouTube at Monstrosities Tokusatsu Vlog. We do movie reviews. We do a lot of live streaming these days. You can also follow us on Twitter at Tokusatsu Vlog. We're also on Instagram as well as Facebook and Discord as well, which you can find an invite link to under any of our videos over on YouTube. And we got a good community of people out there. It's a lot of fun. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So I have been Andres Perez, aka Kaiju Noir.
I've been Super DM64.
And I'm the greasiest fan of them all. Sorry.
Bullshit artist.
Bullshit artist. Horse shit. And until next time, everybody, take care.